Revealed. The incredible journey of Volkswagen's 75-year transformation from darkness to light. Tom Hartman had always felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. At 32, life as a humble mechanic in Lakewood was a constant tussle with disappointment. He grew up in the shadow of his father's struggling Volkswagen dealership, a relic of a dream long since tarnished. Lakewood, with its fading storefronts and a community clinging to old traditions, seemed to reflect the decline of the American dream itself. The town felt small, with its residents' hushed whispers echoing Tom's worries. Tomorrow would bring no new advancements, only more burdens to carry. Tom wiped the grease from his hands as he glanced at the old building. It had once been a symbol of hope. Now it felt more like a tomb. He could see his father's dejected figure through the dusty window, hunched over papers that likely contained nothing good. In a way, they were both trapped under the weight of expectations and failure. They'd done everything right, yet the universe seemed bent on teaching them a harsh lesson. With a tight chest and a furrowed brow, Tom headed inside, full of dread. Just then, a siren wailed in the distance. An accident, he thought, his heart sinking. As the day wore on, the town learned that Mrs. Jenkins, a beloved elderly resident known for her sweet smile and homemade cookies, had been hurt. She tried to make her way to the dealership when she slipped on the ice, falling hard as she crossed the street. News spread like wildfire, anger igniting the hearts of the townsfolk and sending ripples through the community. For a moment, all of Lakewood came together at the hospital, united in worry and support, determined to be stronger than their struggles. Yet beneath this noble facade, whispers of prejudice bubbled up. Many laid the blame on the Hartmans and their failing legacy. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The incident sparked something in Tom. Driven by a new sense of purpose, he devoted himself to revitalize the dealership. He pored over history books, eager to understand Volkswagen, not just mere cars, but its journey from darkness in post-war Germany to resilience. Questions buzzed in his mind. Could he truly honor his family's legacy? Or was it time to forge a new path, free from the sorrow of the past? With every wrench turn and every deep breath, the pressure mounted. One fleeting moment of success, a significant sale, turned disastrous when miscommunication caused confusion, leading to fights and harsh words exchanged between father and son. The feeling of abandonment washed over him, mingling with the cries of neighborhood children playing outside, underscoring his loss. As Tom stood at the intersection of his family's history and the township's expectations, doubts clouded his heart. Could he face the shadows of the past, challenge the smallness in others' hearts, and rise through the bitterness? Only time would tell as he pondered what laid ahead. Would he have the strength to confront the ghosts or succumb to their weight? The road twisted before him, uncertain yet filled with the glimmer of possibility. Tom couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the town's whispers were closing in on him. As he wiped down the last car for the day, a neglected Jetta, every splash of soapy water felt like a reminder of the storms brewing in Lakewood. With Mrs. Jenkins' accident hanging over the community, it was as if the weight of every unresolved issue landed squarely on his shoulders. The dealership was in crisis mode, and he had stepped up in a way he never thought possible. But was it enough? As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the workshop floor, Tom turned to his father, who looked lost among the papers scattering the desk like fallen leaves. "Dad," he broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper, "we need to talk about this. We can't let this place crumble." His father looked up, eyes weary yet glimmering faintly with the embers of hope. "I wish I could believe that, Tom, but it feels like every time we take one step forward, we get pushed 2 steps back." Tom inhaled deeply, a rush of emotions stirring within him. "Then let us change it. We could host an event, something to bring the community together. Maybe a fundraiser for Mrs. Jenkins? His mind raced, the possibilities appearing like bright stars against the dimness of their struggles. An event? His father raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched on his face. You think that LL fix everything? It's a start. Tom insisted, his heart racing as determination sparked within him. We'll showcase the cars, offer free checkups for a day, maybe get local businesses involved. People need something positive to focus on. If we can bring them together, we remind them what this town stands for. A long pause hung in the air. Tom watched as his father considered the idea. Would he dismiss it? Or could this be the rallying cry they both needed? I don't know, his father finally said, eyes softening. But it feels like it might just be crazy enough to work. Hope blossomed in Tom's chest. As they began brainstorming and planning, his father's spirit seemed to rise with every idea exchanged. The challenge ahead felt daunting, yet there was also an unmistakable spark of excitement. They reclaimed the dealership, not just as a business, but as a cornerstone of the community, an anchor amidst the chaos. Days turned into weeks, and as spring breathed new life into Lakewood, posters plastered with bright colors filled the town, adorning storefronts and lamp posts. Lakewood Together Day, they proclaimed, a day of laughter, unity, and good old-fashioned fun. The anticipation rippled through the air, invigorating the community. But not everyone was pleased. Tom was well aware of the whispers within the shadows, the naysayers who felt their family's legacy was tarnished beyond repair. A group of a few prominent townsfolk began to spread stories again, painting Tom's ambitions as futile, naive dreams. He felt it in the air, murmurs that could suffocate the event before it even began. What if they try to sabotage this, Dad? Tom fretted one night as he looked at the still uncertain faces of neighbors leaving the dealership. Then we faced them. Together, his father replied quietly, the strength of their bond evident in his voice. Determination hardened Tom's resolve. He would defend this event no matter what. The stakes felt higher than ever, but so did his spirit. It was time to stand tall against the darkness that threatened to consume them as the morning of the event dawned. Anxiety twisted in Tom's stomach. The crowds would either come to celebrate or judge. He stood at the dealership entrance, his heart pounding and hope clinging tighter. But as he inhaled the crisp morning air, something deep within him whispered, this is your moment. And just then, the first car pulled into the lot. But in the distance, 3 shadowy figures loomed, and Tom's heart sank. Were they the fingers of fate, ready to disrupt everything he had worked for? What would happen next? Would the community rally behind him, or would old wounds fester anew? He could only hold his breath and wait. The hum of engines and the chatter of voices filled the air as families began to trickle into the dealership. Tom's heart raced, both with excitement and trepidation. Would the fear that had shadowed him like a storm cloud become a reality? With each passing moment, the parking lot swelled with cars and laughter, transforming into a sea of hopeful faces and bright banners. Tom caught sight of his father, who wore an encouraging smile. They stood on opposite sides of the entrance, clinging to their shared vision while watching the once uninspired lot burst to life. But then he spotted them, those shadowy figures he had seen from a distance now moving with certainty toward him. The divided faces of town council members Greg, Marion, and Bill, each one a part of the tiny crew who had questioned his motives from day one. With narrowed eyes and sharp features, they approached like vultures circling a wounded animal. Tom steeled himself, determined not to let their negativity darken the day. He leaned into the crowd, greeting guests, shaking hands, wearing a smile that he hoped radiated more confidence than he felt inside. "Tom!" shouted a familiar voice. His friend Jake rushed over, his excitement contagious. "Did you see the turnout? This is amazing." "Yeah, it really is," Tom replied, allowing himself a moment to breathe. The sound of the band tuning up brought joy to the gathering, and soon, the atmosphere transcended Tom's worries. Children laughed as they darted between tables displaying local goods. Families lined up for free checkups, and people exchanged warmth and goodwill. Yet the crowd shifted slightly as Tom glanced back at the 3 council members. They were whispering amongst themselves, eyes darting toward him. Anxiety bubbled again in Tom's chest. Were they planning to make a scene, to spoil this moment that felt so precious? Just breathe, he whispered to himself, closing his eyes for a brief moment. When he opened them again, he was ready to engage. I can handle this, he thought. The morning rolled into afternoon, and the sun shone down brightly. Music filled the air, laughter intertwined with cheers. But just as Tom began to relax, he overheard a troubling comment from Greg, one that cut through the festivities like a jagged knife. Do you really think this is going to help? It's just for show. Nothing ever changes around here, he murmured to Marion and Bill, who nodded in agreement. Tom felt the heat rise in his cheeks. Their words sank heavily in the joyous atmosphere that surrounded him. Why couldn't they see the good? Why did they refuse to believe that it was possible to unite? As if sensing Tom's turmoil, Jake approached again, grabbing his attention. Hey, don't let them get to you. Look around. This is what you wanted, right? Tom didn't reply, instead turning his gaze to the crowd. Their smiles, their shared moments reminded him why he fought so hard. But what if Greg and his crew's whispers reached the wrong ears? What if the seeds of doubt planted by their negativity began to grow? Just then, a commotion caught his eye. A familiar figure appeared, rushing into the dealership, breathless. It was Lucy, a local reporter known for her sharp insights. With her phone in hand, she scanned the crowd and then hurried towards Tom. Tom, we need to talk, she called, urgency lacing her words. What about? Tom asked, a knot of anxiety forming again. There is a story to tell here, and it seems some people aren't ready for the truth to come out. She panted, glancing nervously toward the trio of town council members. Tom's heart raced with a mix of dread and hope. He took a deep breath, preparing for what was to come. The underlying battle between progress and fear loomed larger than ever. Just as Lucy opened her mouth to elaborate, a thundering sound disrupted the atmosphere. A loud crash echoed through the crowd, sending shivers down Tom's spine. He whipped around, heart pounding. What has just happened? Would the haven he created shatter before his eyes? The question loomed in the air like a dark cloud, waiting to unleash its storm. Tom's heart raced as he turned to see what caused the commotion. A delivery truck had backed too close to a food stand, colliding with it in a cacophony of clattering metal and shattering glass. The vibrant decorations and happy chatter momentarily halted, giving way to gasps and murmurs rippling through the crowd. Lucy quickly pulled out her phone, capturing the chaos. I need to get this, she said, already moving towards the scene, her urgency mixing with the unease in the air. Wait, Tom called after her, his voice rising above the chatter. But she was already in motion, fumbling for her notes and asking bystanders for comments. As people's attention shifted to the truck and the owner of the food stand, a feeling of dread washed over him. Was this the moment that would tarnish everything they had built today? He caught sight of Greg, Marion, and Bill snickering, their whispers now filled with delight as they watched the unfolding disaster. Let us move in closer. See how bad it is, Jake suggested, nudging Tom with his shoulder. This is gonna be a mess. Tom hesitated. Shouldn't we help instead? Yeah, definitely, Jake agreed, a look of concern tightening his features. With growing resolve, Tom and Jake approached the scene together. As they reached the food stand, Tom could see the truck driver, an older man with a sheepish expression, trying to lift what he could from the ruins of the stand. The air smelled strongly of spilled soda and fried food mingling with panic. Are you okay? Tom asked, helping the man steady himself as he lifted a fallen table. Just my fault. I thought I had more room, the driver stammered, his cheeks crimson. Tom could feel the growing anxiety around him. The crowd had turned from joyful to anxious, as if they were waiting to see how things would unfold. He glanced back toward the 3 council members, who were now engrossed in another hushed conversation. Their expressions told Tom they were already spinning this incident to reinforce their cynical views. Let us get everyone helped, Jake said, his voice steady. We can still salvage the day. Together, they rounded up a few volunteers from the crowd, moving into action. Tom felt the energy shift as more people joined him, parents, teens, Even some older folks jumped in, working to pick up debris and offer comfort to the shocked vendors. As he threw himself into helping, a warmth spread through him. It was a beautiful reminder of the community they were trying to build. Tom struggled to shake off the nagging doubts that still whispered in the back of his mind. Would this mishap be seen as a sign of failure? Suddenly, he felt a gentle hand on his shoulder. His father's reassuring presence brought clarity. "Look around you, Tom," he said softly. "They're coming together. This is what matters." At that moment, a cheer broke from the crowd as someone had salvaged the last of the food, and the remix of laughter began to blend with the music again. "See?" his dad said, grinning broadly. "They're here to celebrate with you, despite everything. That's your victory." Tom nodded, heart lifting. Yet, just as relief began to wash over him, an unexpected shout from Lucy cut back through the noise. "Tom, you need to hear this." With eyes wide and breath caught, Tom turned to face her, sensing the storm clouds still gathering in his mind. What had she found out? What truth was about to reveal itself that could change everything? "Lucy, what is it?" Tom managed to say, his voice a mix of anticipation and dread. Lucia's face was flushed, the screen of her phone glowing brightly in her hands. "You won. Believe this. Check this out." She thrust the phone towards him, her enthusiasm momentarily overshadowing the tension in the air. Tom leaned in, squinting at the screen. His heart thudded again, but this time it was from intrigue. The headline read, "Local councilman connected to recent scandal." A series of images followed, showing photos of a councilman he recognized, Greg. The details were sketchy but hinted at suspicious dealings related to the festival funding. Tom's stomach twisted as he realized the implications of what she had found. "Lucy, are you sure?" he asked, eyes darting back to Greg, who was still watching the chaos with a smirk. "Yeah. I did some digging and it's all over social media. People are angry. They want accountability." Her voice crackled with urgency, the excitement of a budding journalist spilling over. Tom felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Could this really be their way to get out from under the council's shadow? But was now the right time? The festival was just starting to regain its spirit, and exposing Greg could send shockwaves through the community. "Tom," Jake's voice cut through his thoughts. "What do we do? Should we go public with this?" "No," Tom blurted out, suddenly aware of the delicate balance that hung in the air. "If we panic now, we're going to derail everything we've just worked to rebuild." "But if this is true, we have to hold him accountable," Jake argued, his eyes gleaming with a fierce determination. Tom took a deep breath, the weight of the moment crashing down on him. What if it could wait until after the festival? "We need to keep the community together right now. We can't let their day be ruined." Lucy interjected, "But Tom, if we wait, more people might get hurt by someone who is supposed to keep them safe." The crowd was starting to recapture its energy. The food stand was a wreck, but folks were banding together, sharing stories and laughter louder than before. Tom could feel the warmth of community spilling back into the atmosphere, but now shadowed by the urgency of the truth that Lucy had uncovered. "Maybe we can gather more evidence, figure out a way to make this work to our advantage without scaring everyone," he suggested, his mind working in overdrive. "We need to rally everyone to finish today first. Then we can plan our next steps." Jake nodded slowly, the fire in his eyes never fully dimming. "Okay, we do this your way for now, but we have to keep our eyes open." Lucy bit her lip, pondering the implications, but ultimately agreed. "All right, but this isn't over." She took a step back, clearly distressed about letting go of such a significant story. Just then, another loud cheer erupted from the crowd. A few kids had found a makeshift game, laughing and chasing each other as if the earlier chaos had never existed. Tom watched, his heart lifted again by the resilience of the people around him. Yet as the smiles spread and the music played on, he couldn't ignore the nagging thought that somehow the truth would find a way to break through. "Lucy, keep an ear out, but don't act on anything until we sort this out together," he said, trying to regain some semblance of control. She nodded, but something about the fire in her eyes suggested that it would be harder to contain than any of them realized. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, Tom felt a surge of hope mingled with foreboding. The festival was alive again. But would the truth about Greg rise to the surface before everything came to a closing? With a deep breath, he stepped back into the crowd, determination set on his face. What would happen when the truth finally came knocking? Tom wove through the crowd, his pulse thumping in his ears. Everywhere he looked, families were smiling, friends were laughing, and the joyous buzz of music filled the air. Yet beneath the surface, a tension coiled tight within him. He could feel Lucy's unease, her hunger for justice pulsing while they feigned normalcy. "Look," Jake nudged Tom's side, pointing at the main stage where an impromptu performance was about to start. Local musicians gathered, and people began to clap along, the energy shifting back into celebration. It was the very spirit they worked so hard to reclaim. But how long could they keep the truth at bay? "Let us help out," Tom suggested, desperate to immerse himself in the camaraderie to distract his racing thoughts. They headed towards the food stands, where people were lining up through the remnants of spilled drinks and wraps of colorful paper. As they worked, Tom caught glimpses of Lucy covertly scrolling through her phone. He hated the knot of worry tightening in his stomach every time he noticed her stealing away into the digital world. "Don't get lost in there," he warned softly, and she looked up, a flicker of conflict racing across her features. "I'm just checking updates," she replied, trying to sound more nonchalant than she felt. But her eyes betrayed her eager yet cautious, dancing with determination but filled with doubt. "Stay with us," Tom urged. "Let us celebrate first. We can't let whatever Greg's up to ruin today." He took a deep breath, absorbing the warmth radiating from the kitchen as aromas blended and laughter floated over from nearby tables as the band began to play a lively tune. People swayed, and the joy swelled around them. Tom smiled at the sight. Children were twirling with abandon, parents clapping in time, and strangers now looked like neighbors. Jake broke in with a laugh. "This was the vibe we wanted. Look at everybody, this is what we fought for." His contagious energy sparked a smile on Tom's face too. But just when they seemed to be lost in joy, a loud commotion erupted from the far side of the festival grounds. Tom turned to see a group gathering, voices rising in anger. "What's happening?" he asked, tension creeping back into the pit of his stomach. "Let us check it out," Jake said, urgency in his tone. He and Tom pushed through the crowd, weaving their way toward the ruckus. As they got closer, Tom's heart sank. A man stood on a table, waving his arms wildly, his face flushed with anger. "People, don't you see what's happening? The councilman is stealing from us," he shouted, waving a crumpled paper. "We deserve accountability." The murmurs around them turned restless. Faces once bright with laughter were now clouded with confusion and fear. Tom felt Lucy stiffen beside him. "We can't let this get out of hand," she said, her voice worried. But was this what they wanted? The truth spilling out in chaos instead of careful planning? "Someone needs to step in," Jake said, frowning as he looked at Tom. "They're about to spiral." "Okay, but how?" Tom whispered, anxiety clawing at his chest. Before Tom could figure it out, Lucy took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Hey, everyone," she called, her voice cutting through the rising tension. "Let us talk this through." Tom and Jake exchanged worried glances. What was she doing? She was both brave and reckless, and it could backfire. "Lucy, wait," Tom urged, but she wasn't listening. She was stepping into the fire, and he couldn't help feeling both proud and terrified. Would the flames burn their hopes for change or ignite a revolution? He could only watch as Lucy faced the crowd, ready to speak, her heart pounding like a drum. Would her passion sway their anger, or would it fuel a fire that could burn everything they had worked for to the ground? Just hold on, he thought, breath hitching as he remained rooted to the spot. What would happen next? Lucy stood tall, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around her. "I know you're angry," she shouted, trying to cut through the noise, "but screaming won't change anything. We have to address this together." Faces hardened, and murmurs of dissent rippled through the crowd. Tom felt his heart race. She was risking everything right now. He looked at Jake, who seemed frozen in place, unsure of what to do as the tension thickened. "Get off that table," someone in the back called out. "You're just spreading lies." The man on the table faltered, his anger fading slightly. "No." Lucy pressed on, urgency coloring her tone. "This isn't about him or me. It's about us. About our community. We deserve answers, and we deserve them now." Tom watched as her courage sparked a flicker of hope in the crowd. Some people shifted forward, swayed by her sincerity. Others, however, clenched their fists, anger still bubbling just below the surface. The battle between fear and resolve hung in the air. "Lucy," Tom called again, stepping closer, face tight with worry. "You can't take this on alone. I have to try." She shot back, her gaze fierce. He saw the determination in her eyes, her fierce belief that they could channel this anger towards something constructive. He envied her bravery but couldn't shake the feeling that they were teetering on a razor's edge. A woman near the front, tears glistening on her cheeks, stepped forward. "We've been lied to," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. "We trusted them, and look where it's gotten us." The flicker of solidarity was beginning to turn into a blaze. People started to nod, murmurs growing louder, pulling them into a collective frustration that had been festering for too long. But just as the tide seemed to shift, a group of officials in suits emerged from the festival's perimeter, eyes scanning the crowd, expressions unreadable. The sight of them sent a chill through Tom. Were they there to suppress this part of the festival, or would they help quell the unrest? As Lucy continued, trying to guide the crowd toward a more productive conversation, she caught Tom's eye. There was fear there, mingling with adamant resolve. She was in a precarious position, standing against a community's rage, uncertain if she could truly harness it for change. "Lucy," Tom shouted again. "It's too volatile. We need a plan. Listen." Lucy called out, holding her hands up to seek silence. "Let us gather together in a safe space where we can talk this out. No more shouting, just honest communication about how we move forward." Before anyone could respond, the leading official raised a hand, his voice booming over the crowd. "You need to disperse. This is not the place for this." The crowd roared in protest, anger spilling over once more. Tom felt the ground shifting beneath them as panic began to set in. Would Lucy's call for unity succeed in this cacophony? Or were they racing toward a confrontation that could spiral beyond their control? Tom's stomach twisted as he glanced at Jake, who looked just as worried. Would they all survive this moment intact? But Lucy's face shone with conviction. This wasn't just a fight for today, it was a battle for their future. Could her passion galvanize the crowd? Or would it ignite a conflict none of them were prepared to face? "Stay with me," Tom whispered under his breath, his heart in his throat as he braced for whatever would come next. What if her brave heart faltered in the chaos? What would they do then? The tension in the air was electric. Lucy stood firm, a beacon of defiance in a sea of uncertainty. The faces around her, once hardened, now wavered between hope and fear. She could see them wrestling with their emotions, the remnants of distrust and the stirring of communal resolve. Together, she implored, raising her voice once more. "We can't be torn apart by lies. We have to stand united for what we believe in." The rumble of dissent continued, but there were also soft murmurs of agreement. Tom felt a flicker of hope ignite in the pit of his stomach as he watched people exchange glances, some starting to nod in shared understanding. But the officials loomed closer, their rigid stances cutting through the growing camaraderie like a knife. "Let us just hear her out," a voice shouted from the crowd. It was a young man with determination etched into his features. He pushed through the throng, moving toward Lucy. Tom felt a rush of gratitude toward this stranger. In that moment, it wasn't just Lucy standing for what was right. It felt like a community was leaning in, ready to rally behind her. "Take it down a notch," an official barked, his face unyielding. "We're just trying to ensure safety here." "Safety?" Lucy echoed, disbelief tightening her voice. "Safety is knowing the truth. Safety is protecting our community from corruption." The crowd erupted at her words. Their voices grew louder, the emotions pouring out with each passionate shout. Tom's pulse quickened in sync with the energy swelling around him. This felt like a turning point. As Lucy locked eyes with him again, he could feel her strength. It was intoxicating, this feeling of standing beside her. Yet the fear lurked behind that exhilaration, like a shadow stretching long in the fading light. If they didn't find a way to channel this energy into something tangible, it could all spiral out of control. Please. Lucy raised her hands, trying to maintain order. We're all scared, but we can't let that fear dictate our actions. We need to create a dialogue, to make demands that can unify us rather than divide us. Just as she finished, a loud crash echoed from one side of the gathering. A group of angry individuals had formed, spilling over from the other side of the park, angrily shouting and waving makeshift signs. The sight sent a cold shiver down Tom's spine. The atmosphere shifted again, teetering toward chaos. Lucy, we need to separate ourselves, Tom urged, instinctively pulling her arm. This is going to explode. No, she insisted, more fierce than ever. We need to show them our strength, not run from it. Tom's heart pounded harder. He appreciated her courage, but wasn't it reckless? And then he saw Jake, lens pressed against the camera, capturing this pivotal moment. Even he recognized how crucial this was. A raw testament to an unfinished story, begging for resolution. In the front lines, the shouting grew louder. People were pushing against each other. Was it anger, fear, or passion that drove them now? Tom gripped Lucy's hand tightly. I can't lose you in this, he murmured, feeling a surge of desperation. Suddenly, a figure emerged, a woman, with eyes ablaze like fire, stepping onto the makeshift stage where Lucy stood. Everyone quieted, drawn to her presence. Who was she? What role could she play in this moment of mounting tension? Lucy's eyes widened, and curiosity mingled with apprehension. Could this unexpected newcomer be the turning point they needed? Or would she further incite the fury that was threatening to boil over? Tom felt the weight of their uncertain future heavy in the air. He held his breath, waiting to see what this moment would bring. The crowd fell silent, captivated by the woman stepping forward. Her presence was magnetic, drawing every gaze. Tom squinted, trying to make out the details of her face against the fading light. She wasn't just any stranger. There was a fierceness in her stance, a fire that seemed to hover around her like an aura. Listen, the woman called out, voice clear and commanding. Your fears are valid. But look around. This is not just a protest. It's a fight for our lives. The truth can unify us, but only if we refuse to back down. With that, she raised her fist high into the air. The movement felt galvanizing, and a ripple of energy pulsated through the crowd. Tom felt his heart surge in rhythm, echoing her fierce spirit. He and Lucy exchanged a look. It was a shared understanding that ignited in that moment. Who are you? Someone yelled from the crowd, breaking the spell for a brief second. I'm not here to fight you, she replied, showing her palms to indicate peace. I'm here to fight for you. My name is Maya, and I see the fear and the anger within you. I felt it too. But what we need now is unity. We need a plan. Unity? With whom? Another voice quipped, cutting through the air. They don't want to listen. They have to listen. Maya shot back, her tone unwavering, fierce and determined. You have the power to make them listen. Together, you're the voice of this community. You fought for this long, haven't you? So let us keep the momentum going. Tom realized the crowd was shifting again. The anger wasn't dissipating, but it began to morph into something more vulnerable, a sense of desperation mixed with the flickering hope Maya offered. He could see it in the way people leaned in, their faces softened by her words. Lucy stepped up beside Maya, firm and strong. We demand a town hall. We want our voices heard. If you're with us, then let us take this demand to the officials. No more hiding behind safety. We deserve transparency. Town hall. The crowd began to chant, their voices building in strength, echoing into the park like a shockwave. It was no longer just a shout. It became a collective heartbeat. Tom felt it move through him, wrapping around his insides, tightening with anticipation. But even as hope gained momentum, a deep, instinctive fear lodged in his gut. The officials weren't just there for safety. They were there to silence, to control. What if they didn't take them seriously? What if the mob turned against them again? Suddenly, from the edge of the gathering, he caught a glimpse of the officials, their expressions unreadable, but the tension in the air thickened as they moved closer, ever watchful. "We can't let this moment slip away," Maya urged them. "Prepare to stand your ground." Tom looked at Lucy, gripping her hand tighter. He admired her tenacity but wondered whether they were standing on solid ground or a precipice. Could they truly make a difference? As the chants grew louder, Tom swallowed the lump forming in his throat. This was more than a battle for truth. It was a defining moment for their community. Yet with each cheer, the shadows of uncertainty loomed larger. Would they forge ahead and take a stand, or would they retract into fear once more? He listened to the crescendo of voices around him, now firmly intertwined with Lucy and Maya. Hope flickered, and for the first time he pictured a future without silence. But just then, a piercing whistle cut through their unity like glass breaking, cutting the moment short and sending waves of panic rippling through the crowd. The officials were ready. They were no longer holding back. What were they about to unleash amidst the rising tide of revolt? Tom's heart sank, aware that what came next would define them all. The tension in the air thickened as the piercing whistle echoed through the crowd like a war horn. Tom felt a wave of unease wash over him. He stood with Lucy and Maya, trembling from the weight of what was about to unfold. The officials, now marching toward the stage like a swarm of advancing shadows, made a collective statement with their presence and absolute power ready to silence the overwhelming pleas of the people. But the crowd didn't retreat. They stood, steeling themselves against the looming threat. "We're not afraid," someone shouted, igniting a wave of affirmation that echoed back through the throng. Tom's heart raced as he witnessed the unity blossoming before him. Fear transformed into fierce determination, their voices rising like an anthem of hope. Maya took a step forward, her voice unwavering. "You think we'll back down? No. We are the voice of Lakewood. Together we will not be silenced." Her fiery spirit turned to the crowd, each word resonating within hearts that had long felt neglected and unheard. The whispers of old traditions and complaints about the past were replaced by a palpable energy, a desire for change, for recognition. The officials paused, caught off guard by the resilience blossoming in front of them. "Step down." Greg, the councilman, shouted from the back, his face contorted with frustration. "This isn't how you fix your problems." He stepped forward, attempting to regain control, but the crowd only roared louder. "We're done being told we can't," Lucy bellowed, propelled by the crowd's energy. "We deserve to be heard." It was a perfect moment. A defining moment when fear fell away, revealing the raw strength of community, the heart of Lakewood. Tom's heart swelled with hope, although a hint of dread still lingered. What if this energy only intensified the officials' resolve to quell the uprising? But at that moment, staring into Lucy's determined eyes, he found his own resolve. This wasn't just about today or the festival, it was about the legacy of his father, about the future they could fight for together. With one step, he moved beside Lucy and Maya, joining them at the front. "This is our home. We built it together and we'll stand together." His voice rang out, and he was surprised by the strength he felt within. Suddenly, to Tom's amazement, the crowd surged forward, propelling them as a single entity. "Town Hall! Town Hall!" they chanted, a collective heartbeat echoing through the park. The officials staggered back, their attempts to establish authority crumbling under the weight of the community's spirit. The unity buzzed with rebellion, and Tom realized that they were not simply shouting into the void. They were rewriting their story, one of resurrection, rebirth, and a fierce assertion of rights over their world. As the officials faltered, Greg's face turned from anger to panic. "You think this will help? You're just making it worse," he shot back. But now the doubts in his own heart began to echo the sentiments of the very people he sought to control. "No, this is our way forward," Maya shouted, a beacon of light amidst the chaos. We'll demand accountability. We'll rebuild our town's trust together. Lucy stepped toward the group, her heartfelt sincerity breaking through. We aren't here to fight each other. We're fighting for Lakewood. We're fighting for each other. She held her hands high, which quieted the crowd for a moment. Let us show them how powerful we can be. Tom couldn't help it anymore. He stepped forward, taking Lucy and Maya's hands in his own. Let us take that demand to the officials, to a real town hall where we can lay out our voices, our needs. As he spoke those words, a collective cheer erupted from the crowd. Tom felt lifted, buoyed by the raw emotion around him. This was what true unity looked like, the people bound together in purpose and resolve. What do we want? A voice called from the back. Accountability. The crowd thundered back, voices rising in unison. When do we want it? The voice continued. Now. Each chant pulled against the last remnants of division. Tom felt the fire inside him roaring, igniting a rush of collective hope. The officials stood frozen, the reality of the rebellion sinking into their expressions. Tom's heart swelled and broke at once. He finally felt a spark of restoration in his relationship with his father, with the town, and with himself. Maybe, just maybe, they were on the right side of change. Maybe they could stand against the shadows together, unearthing a legacy that had been forgotten. As the eruption of chants filled the air, Tom stood tall, surrounded by the people he loved, his father, friends, and neighbors, weaving through a tapestry of hearts united. The sunlight began to pierce through the clouds, illuminating faces bright with newly awakened hope. And right then, something magical began, an unstoppable change, bursting forth like the dawn. They wouldn't let old wounds bind them anymore. Today was only the beginning. The shadows that had loomed so long began to dissipate, making way for a new era, a bright horizon where Lakewood would reclaim its dream together. Submerge yourself in that story now. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel for more legendary transformations. Leave a like now to help fuel the algorithm's fire for change. Let your voice be heard. Comment below your reactions, your feelings about this triumphant conclusion. And don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this transformation. This is the moment to show your support for stories that ignite hope. Our journey is just beginning.